Good morning, everybody. Everything new under the sun. Some interesting articles which maybe give us an idea as to where we are. Could be something that's going to come up soon. And as we look at the timeline of the return of the Lord, as I understand it, and I always preface it with I could be wrong. Maybe we're 10, 15 years out. Maybe it's a couple months off. Maybe it's never going to come to pass. But I think based on my understanding of the Bible, and many others as well. I think we are close to that 7 year period. And so with that, with the prophetic wars that are coming, with the social unrest, the civil unrest, the Antichrist kind of rising in power wherever he is, whoever he is, and the peace deal on the horizon, there's just a lot of events that are converging. So one of the next things I would say is and predict is that there's probably going to be a brand new virus because if you think of the birth pains are coming, they're increasing in frequency and intensity, and there's waves. And I'd like to do a video about the waves, but basically you have a small wave, which is maybe COVID, and then you have a larger wave. You have a brief amount of time where there's some respite, some calming down of things, and then you have another wave, which is a little bit bigger. Maybe it's going to be the next thing. And the news currently coming out of Russia is that they're trying to weaponize Ebola. So something to pay attention to. And I did kind of tentatively predict that there's going to be not just a new strain of COVID, but some brand new pandemic virus that's going to be going around maybe this year. I don't know. Just keep an eye out for it. If that's the case, think of the waves coming at you. The birth pains and those waves of pain where they come up and then they spike and then they go down and then they spike again. With that, I want to get to kind of the news of the day. And let me just pull up this article here about Macron. This is interesting. French President Emmanuel Macron offers himself as a broker of peace between United States and Iran in stunning Antichrist foreshadowing. Now, this is nowtheendbegins.com. And I did a whole video about Macron a couple of years ago now. He's an interesting character, and he's been an interesting character all along. He's stayed on the world stage. He is still on the world stage, and he wants to get in the middle of all these peace deals. He wants to help broker peace and be a shaker and a mover on the world stage. French President Macron on Thursday welcomed the renewed U.S. willingness to engage with Iran, of course, with Biden in power. And he offered himself as an honest broker and said Saudi Arabia and Israel must ultimately be involved somehow. It makes me think of the statement in the Bible where Abraham was offering Isaac, and Abraham said, "The Lord will offer Himself a sacrifice." Interesting, and just the wordplay there, being that God would send His Son Jesus, and so literally He Himself would be the sacrifice for mankind, and so yeah, I'm sure it wasn't meant to sound like that, but Macron says he is offering himself as an honest broker of a peace deal. So it's very interesting. Is Macron going to be the kind of the guy to confirm the covenant with the many? If we are that close to the 7 year period, it's that time where maybe we'll start seeing leaders pop their head up and maybe could say, you know what, could that be the guy? Even if we are raptured out before the traditional understanding of the revealing of the Antichrist, I would expect Christians still would be able to maybe put together a list of people who were in leadership, who maybe fit the descriptions of the Antichrist. And Macron doesn't fit all the descriptions exactly, but we don't know how exactly those descriptions are going to be applied, etc. There's various interpretations of what the description of the Antichrist is, and I've went through those as well. I believe Macron has a wife and children, correct me if I'm wrong, which don't fit. Regardless, Macron is an interesting figure. What he is going for, what he stands for, what his name means, Emmanuel Macron. Interesting figure nonetheless. So is this maybe an example of an Antichrist? And I expect this year would be the year that I would expect this Antichrist figure to come into focus, whether the Christians are gone or not. So interesting thing. Israel. So along with that, as Israel's COVID deaths cross 5,000, 39 parties run for the March election. So we're quickly approaching the new elections. This is all related to the 70 Shepherds of Israel, which again, very briefly, predict that Netanyahu, who's the 12th and final prime minister of Israel, that he will be the last before the Messiah comes and rules and reigns in Israel. That's the prediction that the 70 Shepherds of Israel out of the book of Enoch say. And by the way, someone emailed me about the Book of Enoch, and you can go to sacred-texts.com, and they have the ancient Book of Enoch there. There's other place you can go on Amazon and buy a copy of the ancient Book of Enoch as well. It's not considered canon. It's not considered inspired per se, but very interesting, and a prediction that's has not been debunked yet. About the leaders, the rulers, the shepherds of Israel. So this March election, again, this is a big election, just like it was in the U.S. And I think the U.S., it's a turning point in the U.S. elections there for the country, for the direction of the country. So goes this Israeli election. This is another one. Look at this election. Polls show pro-Third Temple politicians becoming lawmakers. Why is this interesting? Well, you combine this with French President Macron and maybe an Antichrist figure who wants to create a peace deal and who eventually will make a deal that will somehow allow the Jews to start their sacrifices again. And so you would think that would come at a time when there was pro-temple lawmakers in there and enough to make a difference. It started out with just one or two, and now we're getting a few more lawmakers in there who are pro Third Temple. So can you see how this is converging now? You have the political will in the world to create peace. You have the political will in Israel to start a Third Temple, and the weight of that will and the lawmakers is increasing as more and more get into the Knesset and get into these parties that are running for the leadership there. And Netanyahu is in the lead, again, in accordance, in agreement with the Book of Enoch, the 70 Shepherds of Israel. Pretty fascinating stuff. So we can see these things converging on the political stage. And I think there's going to be some significant warfare. Again, there's even more rumors and statements of, a preemptive, should Israel do a preemptive strike on Iran, etc. And where does this peace deal come in? I kind of think, if it were just me, that there would be some sort of preemptive strike which really took the world to the edge of a cliff. And then this leader would come in and say, peace, peace. And they would create peace in the midst of significantly heightened tensions, maybe after a little bit of a preemptive strike by Israel to take out Iran's nuclear weapons. Now we know about the war of Gog-Magog. Iran, Russia, Turkey, they march on Israel. That must mean that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. Otherwise, they would just fire a missile from afar, right? But no, they're actually marching using conventional warfare, airplanes and such, to march and to invade Israel. So it comes to reason, it makes sense that Israel would do a preemptive strike on the nuclear weapons, and then Iran would join forces with them after that and march against Israel in a more conventional way, since their nuclear capability was maybe delayed in another couple of years. So that, with the discussion of preemptive strike and this Third Temple that is happening, all this stuff is really bubbling up to the top of the news cycle. Perfect timing, of course, for the timeline of the return of the Lord. If this is correct, it would be perfect timing. I see the news right now as basically confirming what we understand is going to happen in the last days. Now, I don't know exactly how it's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen in this order, but we certainly see these big headline items happening right now before our eyes. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. I've got to get to my day job. But thanks for watching. If you want to support me, you can buy me a coffee at micahgallant.com/support. And that would be much appreciated. And as always, leave comments and hit the like button and subscribe. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. And we'll see you guys in the next video.